In the high-altitude theaters of modern conflict, there has always been a clear and defined hierarchy. At the summit of this lethal pyramid sit the multi-million-dollar predators. These are the titans of titanium and steel, the engineering marvels designed to project power across entire continents and erase strategic targets from 30 miles away with surgical precision. Among these giants, one name has stood out in the Russian arsenal above almost all others: the Sukhoi Su-34. Known to NATO as the fullback and to its own pilots as the Hellduck because of its unique aerodynamic nose, this aircraft was built to be an invincible hammer. It is a supersonic fortress, a medium-range fighter bomber that carries the weight of a superpower's military ambitions on its wings. For years, the pilots of these machines operated with the confidence of gods, believing themselves to be the ultimate masters of the sky, untouchable by the chaos unfolding on the ground below. But tonight, that hierarchy is not just being challenged. It is being systematically and violently dismantled by an enemy they never saw coming. Deep inside Russian territory, far from the muddy trenches and the blood-soaked fields of the front line, a different kind of hunter is emerging from the shadows. This hunter does not have a pressurized cabin or a titanium-armored cockpit. It does not have a galley to heat food or a crew of elite officers. It does not even have a pilot sitting inside its frame. Instead, in a dimly lit basement somewhere in Ukraine, a young operator stares intently at a flickering monitor, his hands steady and precise on a plastic controller. He is flying a machine made of carbon fiber, plastic, and off-the-shelf electronics. His target is the crown jewel of the Russian Air Force, a machine 40,000 times more expensive than the drone he is piloting. This is not just a tactical strike or a fortunate hit in the fog of war. It is a calculated message sent through the black smoke of a burning runway. It is the definitive beginning of a new era where the giants of the sky are no longer safe in their own homes. Welcome to the era of the fullback's nightmare. To truly understand why the destruction of an SU-34 matters so much in the grand strategy of modern warfare, you have to understand the legend and the engineering of the machine itself. The Su-34 is not just another fighter jet. It is a specialized tool of destruction, born from a late Soviet-era dream of creating a bomber that could survive the most hostile environments imaginable. Its design is both revolutionary and peculiar. Unlike almost every other modern fighter, where the crew sits in a tandem configuration, one behind the other, the Su-34 features an unusually wide side-by-side cockpit. This allows the pilot and the navigator to sit shoulder to shoulder, improving communication and significantly reducing the psychological and physical strain of long-duration missions. The entire cabin is encased in a 17mm thick titanium armored capsule, a protective shell often referred to by experts as the titanium bathtub. This armor is specifically designed to protect the crew from direct hits by high-caliber anti-aircraft fire and jagged shrapnel. The aircraft is so massive and well-equipped that the pilots can actually stand up to stretch their legs and even use a small, rudimentary toilet and a galley behind the seats during grueling 10-hour sorties. It was built for a world where endurance and survivability were the only things that mattered. In the current conflict, the Su-34 has become the primary delivery vehicle for Russia's most devastating tool of attrition, the UMPK glide bomb kits. These massive explosives, often weighing 1,500 kilograms, are fitted with pop-out wings and satellite guidance systems. They allow the Su-34 to remain 60 or 70 kilometers away from their targets, safely out of reach of almost all Ukrainian tactical air defenses, while delivering a blow that can vaporize a fortified position or a high-rise building in a matter of seconds. For the better part of 2 years, the Su-34 was the ultimate tactical cheat code. It allowed the Russian military to dominate the battle space from a comfortable distance, operating with total impunity from airfields like Morozovsk, Lipetsk, and Akhtubinsk. These bases were considered sanctuaries, safe havens where the elite of the Air Force could rest and refit far from the reach of the enemy. But that sense of sanctuary has been exposed as a lethal illusion. The operation known as Deep Frost was not a product of random chance or luck. It was the result of months of meticulous intelligence gathering and a deep, cynical understanding of the enemy's growing complacency. Ukrainian intelligence units did not just look for where the planes were parked. They mapped the daily rhythms and the human weaknesses of the bases. They tracked the arrival of fuel convoys, the timing of security patrols, and the specific weather patterns that would mask the sound of low-flying engines. Most importantly, they identified a critical failure in Russian logistics. Despite the increasing threat of long-range strikes, the Russian command had failed to build hardened concrete shelters for their most valuable aviation assets. Millions of dollars of state-of-the-art technology sat out in the open on the tarmac, protected by nothing more than a thin layer of asphalt and the hope that the distance from the border would be enough. The weapon chosen for this high-stakes hunt was the Lyuty long-range kamikaze drone. It is a peculiar, almost primitive-looking machine, resembling a small hobbyist plane more than a weapon of strategic significance. Its engine produces a distinct, lawnmower-like buzz, and its fuselage is constructed from simple fiberglass and plywood. But beneath this humble exterior lies a sophisticated GPS guidance system and enough range to fly over 1,000 kilometers into the Russian heartland. On a moonless night, dozens of these drones were launched from hidden catapults deep within the forests of northern Ukraine. They did not fly at high altitudes where the massive S-400 radar systems could easily track them. Instead, they hugged the contours of the Earth, flying just meters above the tree line to stay beneath the radar curtains. They weaved through valleys and over dark fields, moving like a swarm of silent ghosts toward the Morozovsk air base. As they neared the target, they weren't just a collection of drones. They were a coordinated, multi-directional strike force designed to overwhelm and confuse the base's air defenses. The first wave of the attack was designed to create maximum chaos and distraction. The drones slammed into the base's massive fuel depots and ammunition storage areas, igniting pillars of orange flame that reached hundreds of feet into the night sky. The secondary explosions of thousands of gallons of high-octane aviation fuel turned the airfield into a landscape of blinding heat and deafening noise. Russian ground crews scrambled in a frantic panic, and heavy anti-aircraft guns began to fire blindly into the darkness, tracers lighting up the sky as they searched for the low-flying intruders. Amidst this inferno, a single SU-34 pilot managed to reach his cockpit and initiate an emergency start. The roar of his twin Lyulka Saturn engines competed with the sounds of the dying base as he pushed the throttle forward, desperate to save his jet from the spreading fires. As the massive aircraft accelerated down the runway, its tires screaming against the hot asphalt, the pilot likely believed he was clear of the danger. He felt the familiar pull of lift under the wings as the nose pitched up for takeoff. But what he could not have known was that while the long-range drones were busy igniting the fuel tanks, a second, much smaller and more agile predator was already in the air, loitering in the shadows above the runway. High above the chaos, a small FPV interceptor drone, no larger than a common household appliance, was diving at terminal velocity. The drone's operator, sitting in a secure location hundreds of kilometers away, had the jet's massive, glowing engine exhaust centered perfectly in his crosshairs. It was a race between a supersonic titan of the Cold War and a plastic mosquito of the digital age. In the world of traditional military theory and the billion-dollar defense industry, what happened in those next few seconds should have been impossible. A $500 drone should not be able to destroy a $40 million jet in midair. But as the Su-34 retracted its landing gear and began its ascent, the FPV drone slammed directly into the right engine intake with surgical accuracy. The drone's small but lethal shape charge warhead detonated on impact, sending a focused spray of molten metal and high-velocity shrapnel directly into the spinning titanium turbine blades. The engine did not just fail, it underwent a catastrophic disintegration. The sudden and violent imbalance of thrust sent the 50-ton aircraft into an uncontrollable yaw. Within a few heartbeats, the pride of the Russian aerospace forces was no longer a weapon of war, but a falling, unguided mass of metal. The jet slammed back onto the tarmac in a spectacular fireball, sliding for hundreds of meters through the wreckage of the base before finally coming to a rest as a blackened, skeletal ruin. This was not just a loss of hardware, it was a devastating loss of pilot experience and national prestige. But the real twist in this story is not just the spectacular nature of the kill itself. It is the realization that the Russian military has found no effective answer to this evolving threat. They can attempt to build more jets, but they cannot easily replace the decade of training and the $5 million invested in every single fullback crew. Furthermore, the fundamental math of the war has been irrevocably altered. Ukraine can produce 10,000 of these interceptor drones for the price of a single lost SU-34. The defenders do not need to be successful every time. They only need to be lucky once to achieve a strategic victory. Every time a drone finds its mark, it erodes the foundation of Russian air power, forcing their commanders to make impossible choices about where to hide their remaining assets. The safe zones have shrunk to nothing. The sanctuaries are burning. And for the first time in military history, a major power's air force is being grounded and defeated not by a rival air force, but by a decentralized, high-tech insurgency of remote-controlled shadows. We are currently living through a fundamental and permanent shift in the nature of human conflict. For nearly a century, air superiority was defined by the industrial capacity to produce the fastest jets, the most powerful radars, and the most expensive long-range missiles. But the plastic revolution has changed the equation forever. The democratization of destruction means that a nation no longer needs a billion-dollar industrial base to cripple an elite military force. It only needs the ingenuity to adapt civilian technology and the cold-blooded courage to fly those tools into the dark. The Su-34 fullback will likely go down in history as a final, staggering monument to late Cold War engineering. A beautiful and terrifying machine that was built for a type of war that simply no longer exists. Its heavy armor and side-by-side cockpit were designed to protect it from the threats of the 20th century, but they provided absolutely no defense against the distributed, low-cost threats of the 21st. As the sun rises over the smoldering remains of once secure air bases, the world is watching a new reality take shape before its eyes. It is a reality where the small can hunt the large, where the cheap can destroy the expensive, and where no target, no matter how well defended, is truly out of reach. The hunters have become the hunted, and the sky, once a playground for the technological elite, has become a graveyard for those who refuse to adapt. The nightmare of the Su-34 is a stark warning to every modern military on the planet. Adapt to the era of the swarm, or prepare to be erased from the sky. The age of the solitary giant is over. The age of the invisible swarm has begun. Write your tactical analysis in the comments. We'll see you in the next deep dive. Stay sharp.